Hi everyone, it's Ketan Makwana here, and welcome to another episode of the League of Disruptors show. We were meant to be on yesterday, but due to technical difficulties we weren't on, but we still got a power-packed week full of experts and business owners that are coming to put a spotlight on their genius so you can step into yours. And today I have a really special guest, someone that I've only recently got to know, but is doing some amazing stuff over there in the US actually. So we're over the pond this evening talking to Debbie, or Deborah should I say, Deborah Owen. How are you?
I am well. It's great to be here with you today, Ketan. Thank you so much.
No, it's an absolute pleasure. So Debbie, there's a little bit of the bio that I'm going to tell everyone in the audience here. I mean, obviously you've been a life coach. You've been, you've excelled and certified in mindset mastery and stuff like this. You are now actually working a lot on content and content management and getting the right type of content to help people win in their businesses. I think you have a mission for over 1,000 businesses that you want to get accelerated and grow using the right content strategies. Is that correct?
That is absolutely correct. That's my mission, is to help the small business owners and get them out there so that they can help lots more people.
Fantastic. So I think for some of our audiences here in the UK that probably not sure who you are, it'd be really good for you to perhaps start off with a little bit of background on who you are, how you got to where you are today, and again, a little bit more about what you're doing.
Well, thank you. So I actually, the first part of my career I spent as a public school library teacher for 12 years. Trying to get reluctant teenagers to recognize that research is really important in their lives. And so I actually really loved working with the kids, but I kind of got to the pinnacle of what you can do as an educator, and I was looking for something next, and I was a little frustrated with some of the extra stuff that goes along with being a public school teacher too. So I realized it was just time for my next step. And started taking a whole bunch of online courses with some of the big names in our industry, Danny Inney and Jeff Walker, and I learned about internet writing from Jeff Goins and from Derek Halpern and some of these other people. And so I started putting all those pieces together, published my first book, started blogging, and eventually left the classroom and got some certifications in life coaching, parent coaching, ultimately kind of a mindset for performance, particularly for youth and youth performers, athletes, musicians. My background is as a musician. My first master's is in music. Wow. And my second master's was in library and information science. So it's kind of a lot of different pieces, putting it all together. And long story short, doors started opening for me. I'm a pretty good writer, I'd say, and I had some people who were really interested in working with me, people like Todd Brown, Scott Oldford, and Ryan Lee, and some of these people I paid, some of them they've paid me, and so that's what I'm doing right now, is I've kind of walked that journey, and now I'm helping small business owners create the kind of business that they want to be able to impact their families and their communities as well.
That's amazing. I mean, you've got I wouldn't say it's a fragmented, but you definitely have a lot of pieces in the jigsaw puzzle there with regards to 2 masters. Wow. I mean, you seem to have a big penchant for the arts and culture and creativity with the type of background that you've had. I mean, 10 years sort of being within sort of teaching, and then also the library itself. I mean, most people think of a library and go, but I mean, it's you've got a fountain of knowledge around you. You must have spent oodles of time actually, seeping in so much stuff that was, during that sort of tenure. But I just want to go very quickly into, before we kind of go into content and content writing and the copy and strategies and stuff like this, which is, I know, what some of the audiences will be wanting to hear in on. And by the way, guys, if you are watching and you have any questions for Debbie, please get them onto the timeline, and we will I'll ask Debbie before we finish off today by 8 o'clock. I just want to go back into your academic career, when you were a teacher and stuff like this. We have, there have been discussions in the past, not only on previous shows, but in general, about the state of education and the way that education is is set up, and the fact that you as teachers must conform even though they want to bring variety. Your experience as a teacher, I mean, what was it like, and did you have many frustrations with your ability or restraints that you would have in your ability to actually teach your pupils?
Yeah, actually, that's one of the reasons that I decided to move out of the classroom, was because I was frustrated. And one of the things that I was trying to do as a public school library teacher, now, one of my gifts was I didn't have to grade the kids really that much. So that allowed them to kind of be more open with me on a regular basis. One of the negatives was I didn't have my own set of kids, so I didn't get to know them quite as well as some of the classroom teachers. But we had our regulars in the library. I'm sure many of our listeners remember either being one of those library regulars themselves or knowing who the library regulars are, the kids who are often, they're just trying to they're either trying to avoid a lot of what the other kids are doing, or they're trying to excel in school. And I was frustrated with a lot of the requirements that were put on teachers that really had very little to do with teaching, and really very little to do with supporting the children. And so that was frustrating for me. Also, as a parent of 3 children myself, I saw what my own children's frustrations were with the education system, and they managed to work within it. They managed to conform in their own ways and yet get the most out of it. They ended up doing, all of them did very, very well all the way through our public school system, and they all got into the college of their choice when they were ready to do that, which is a big deal here in the U.S.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was frustrating. And one of the things that drove me crazy as a librarian was so much stuff was blocked, and in the library, in the school, and I wanted to teach the kids how to use, for instance, social media well, instead of just blocking it. And that was my first book. I interviewed Danny Inney, Heaton Shaw, Pat Flynn, Jeff. Chris Brogan, and a couple of other, big names like that. I interviewed them for my first book. Actually, I interviewed them for my blog, and then I put them into a book. And it was great. It was all about how to use social media well and how to teach kids to use social media well. And what was interesting about this book is it's platform agnostic, so that the concept was what I was looking for, not how do you use Facebook or how do you use Twitter, because as we know, kids aren't using Facebook anymore. They're using Snapchat and texting. And so I wanted to be able to teach them, what I call the 6 C's, and I probably won't remember them all off the top of my head, but community and connection and curating information, and, so those important skills that actually are critical to their education and aren't always being taught. And I thought that social media would be a great way to teach kids how to use these skills ethically and responsibly, and so that's why I wrote that first book.
That's fantastic, and I think it's not just in school. I think there are quite a few other environments or sectors or areas of our civilization that could probably do with a good guide on how to use our social media more ethically, more properly.
That is true.
And ethically, in this respect. And it is this very thing. We are now in a digital age. Our TVs are becoming more and more redundant. They are. The TVs are now becoming what the radio was in that respect. I think Gary Vaynerchuk says a lot about the fact that, if you've got a smartphone, that's your future TV, and your channels are your Facebooks, your Instagrams and your YouTubes and stuff like this. So you've got to become a little bit more aware and conscious to the fact that you're not just there as a recipient of information, but you're also someone who's going to now deliver information. All of a sudden, you are the star of your own movies. You are, we've got technology like this where you and I can connect and go live very much, off these platforms. And whilst there is this massive pool of information and this age of information that's being built on, I think there's also this area of connectivity, and the fact that it's faster and faster for people to connect. So just going on now, jumping a little bit ahead from the books and you're from teaching you and we'll come back to the mindset stuff in a little while. I kind of want to tap into this environment here about content strategy. What got you to first of all, what got you to the stage of saying, I think it's about time I start working with people on their content?
Well, what happened was I started writing for Todd Brown at Marketing Funnel Automation, and was introduced at that point, really kind of introduced at that point, because I was not as familiar with it prior to that. I mean, like I said, I'm a good writer, and once I started writing for Todd and working with his team, I realized that, wow, there's this whole world of content marketing that I really needed to understand. I'd been taking those marketing courses that I talked about earlier, yes, but I didn't understand how content was a part of that. And so I started reading as many books as I possibly could, and blog articles, and, you know, here's the librarian in me, the inveterate learner coming out again. And I basically just taught myself and talked to people, and I worked with a couple of coaches and people who were teaching me some of these things. And the idea is, you need to be able, as a marketer, we all are content marketers. There is no such thing as marketing without content. And content without marketing isn't going to get you very far. So the whole point is, you need to figure out who your perfect client is. Who is your audience? What are their greatest fears, needs, problems, desires, and concerns? And then create the content that will address them where they are. And I think that's something that a lot of entrepreneurs, and particularly solopreneurs, don't fully understand, is you have to meet your audience member where they are and provide them what they need at that moment in time, or they're going to tune you out.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting you say that, because obviously the more we're getting deeper into this digital age, and, you know, I think what we're also going through is, if you look at 50 years ago, the way in which people were communicated, engaged, the way you spoke to them was very much about build a relationship, build a relationship, build a relationship, build the trust, build the, you know, it was a very slow grinding wheel that was going round in regards to, and dare I say it, within the content you're talking about, you know, radio was pretty much one of the biggest ways of actually impacting, you know, from a mindset perspective. TV first then came along, and this was kind of a phenomenon, but most of it was this human engagement kind of thing, where you know, we had to have this kind of one-to-one relationships. Fast forward 50 years, we are becoming more and more increasingly impatient with the information. We want it now. We want it. We want exactly what we're looking for. Otherwise, like you say, the switch goes off. The kind of attention goes away. And you mentioned in the fact that solopreneurs and, you know, early stage entrepreneurs perhaps have this misconception of what content actually is, or how they should be using this. Could you give us a little bit breakdown of an example of the type of content that, let's say, a solopreneur or an emerging entrepreneur would need to consider having? Because there are I mean, I've heard this whole thing about, you've got to repurpose your content, you've got to make this, you've got to produce blogs, you've got to produce vlogs, you've got to produce PDFs, you've got to do this, you've got to do that. And I'm like, geez, when do I actually get to do the business? You know?
Yeah.
So could you give us a little bit of an insight into what type of content does today's solopreneur and entrepreneur need to consider within their business?
Yeah, and the very first step is, you absolutely must know your avatar really, really well. And I think, I mean, I was guilty of this when I was first starting out too. You have to know them so well that you can get inside their heads and think things for them that they can't even articulate for themselves. And that's really important. Once you know who your avatar is, your persona, your perfect client, your audience, whatever you want to call it, it's that, you know, give that person a name, describe them demographically, and describe them psychographically, you know, and that goes back again into what we were saying earlier about not just how old they are and where they live, and you know, how many kids they have, but what makes them tick, what are they worried about, what's their biggest concern, and until you really know your avatar, you can't move on to the next piece. And the next piece, and I actually have 6 A's that I put this under, and it's not rocket science. I mean, people call it all different things. I'm calling it 6 A's so that I can claim it, right? You know, everybody's got to have their system.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, these are my 6 A's. So I start with avatar, so you really got to know your person. The next one is their anxiety. What's their anxiety? and what's their ambition. So you got to know what's their anxiety and what's their ambition. And then the next piece of this is what's their acquaintance with the rest of the market, okay? And then finally, their awareness level of what their issues are. And then the last A is either anecdote or autobiography, and that's just simply how you address them, is the story piece of it. But the point is for an entrepreneur, once you know where your audience member is in their buying journey, are they at a point where they're just vaguely aware of their problem? They're it's kind of bugging them, but they're not really ready to do a whole lot about it yet. That's problem aware. And that's where you want to introduce yourself to them so that they at least know you. Okay, we've got the know, like, and trust, and I'm going to coordinate with that. So they're vaguely problem aware, and they have an attention span. Scott Oldford has really zeroed in on this in his system, the SSF funnel. But they have an attention span that lasts about a minute, maybe 2 minutes if you're really lucky. So your blog article or your video or your audio needs to be, or an image, needs to be really short and to the point. And the key is it needs to tell them what their problem is and why they have it. So in a really short period of time, you need to say, this is your problem and this is why you have it. This is what other people have. So that's that first layer. Then in the prospect awareness level, I go up kind of a rung in the ladder to solution aware. Okay, so now they know they have this problem, and now they're aware of the fact that, wow, there are people out there who have this problem and they solve this problem. And that's where you might use a case study to describe what you've done, all right? And so once you've told them what their problem is and why they have it, the next piece of content you want to share with them is going to be something that tells them, you have hope to solve this problem. You're not alone, and that there is some other way to get a positive result. And then from there, they go up to product aware, and that's where so you've gone from no to liking you, and this middle level of solution aware is important because you want to educate them. You let them know that you exist. You let them know that you have a solution, that you have a system. This is what your system is. What did I just say? I said I have a system. 6 A's, right?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm educating. Now people know they have a problem. Now I'm giving them a solution. There's hope for your solution. There's hope for your problem to be solved if you want to. And then finally, it would be product aware, which we'll get to before we're done talking today. And that is, I have a solution for you. This is my specific solution. This is my unique way of solving your problem. And at this point, you want to tell your prospect, you couldn't solve this problem before because you never had this particular solution. Now that you have my solution, and if you stick with it, you'll be able to solve this problem. So we've moved up the ladder. I'll just reiterate, from problem aware, knowing you, to solution aware, they like you because you're educating them, to product aware, and that's where they trust you enough to pull out their wallet and pay for your product.
It's really interesting you say that, Deb. It's really, really interesting because with a lot of clients that I work with, they're very, very fast out of the traps into the sort of product aware part. They don't really do the problem solution part. Well, some of them do solution, but some of them don't grasp this whole part about the problem. And like you say, very short, impactful messaging, signaling about what the problem is that grabs their attention. You then move into a slightly longer amount of time, which is more about these are the solutions, and hey, here is Jack, who I worked with, and they had a similar problem to you, and this is how we solved it. And then that kind of moves into this kind of product position. I find a lot of my client base and a lot of young, fledgling entrepreneurs run straight into the solution. So they'll come out, they'll watch what other people are doing, perhaps on Facebook or using live or videos and stuff like this, and say, okay, they just talk about solution, so I should talk. What they've missed is the first two aspects of what those guys have done already. And
then they wonder why nobody buys their stuff.
Yeah. Well, actually, because it almost feels like the proverbial, I'm coming into a room and I'm just shouting out there what I have to offer, rather than kind of working through and see, am I in the right place? And am I with the right people? Am I trying to sell running trainers to 90-year-old grannies, for example? It's that kind of scenario. The thing is with this is, I suppose, some entrepreneurs will probably find this challenging because it's digital, it's virtual, it's electronic. It's not this whole tangible piece. Like I say, roll back 50 years, it was very much a tangible thing. You physically meet someone, you get this kind of expression or reaction or response. Right now, what you get, and we'll talk a little bit about campaigns and further down the line, but we get a situation where people perhaps go and do Facebook campaigns, or they do like campaigns, or whatever it is, and the minute they press the button to submit or transmit, they're constantly looking on the deck to see how many people have viewed it, how many people watched it, has anyone converted. It's kind of this impatient part as well, that I've done everything, now I should get the result. When actually, what you kind of brought out really, really nicely, cleanly, and if I may say clinically, is this kind of 6A system to understand your customer, and then 3 direct awareness approaches, which actually make sure that your customer is aware of you. Because it's not just that, we're in a crowded space, today, with the amount of coaches and service offerings, and I can help your business, I can make you better, I can make you win a gold medal, whatever it is that people are saying they can make you do. So even as a consumer, I'm often buried in the noise of, where do I go, who do I look at? But you focus on building content winning strategies. So on one side it's the content, on the other side it's the strategy, if I'm right, in terms of how that goes through. So with these systems here, have there been instances where you've had clients that have come on board who believe they've got the best strategy ever, and you've actually looked at it and said, oh my God, what the hell are you doing? But you can't really just tell them straight away, we're not in that kind of room where we can just, but what is it that you look for when you get clients come to you? Some people will come with this, I would say perhaps this kind of misconception that they think they're doing it right. And they have this kind of an air about them that, why do I need you? And then you've got others who have absolutely no clue whatsoever, or a strategy, and are like, come on, please help me. So when you're taking on clients to come in and work with you, are there any key things that you're looking for, and what do you personally look for to then turn around and say, right, okay, this is where your gaps are, and this is how we're going to work with you? So what kind of clients do you normally take on?
Great question, and I'm actually I'm probably doing this wrong, but I have kind of a two-pronged strategy right now. One is, I know a lot of people online, and so if there are if there are some people online who need somebody to help them create either a content strategy, or who need copywriting or ghostwriting or something along those lines, I'm absolutely helping those. I'm also in the process of working. I've been doing some local seminars recently, and so I'm looking to be able to help some of the kind of the local, more brick and mortar types of businesses. Mm-hmm. And I'm just getting started in that arena. So I've had one client for one small job at this point. I'm hoping to start getting some more. But in terms of the types of clients I'm looking for, ideally it's somebody who's willing to say, I need to do some research on exactly who my client is. Remember, it goes back to that avatar thing again. I find that so many people haven't done the research on who their number one best client is. And so that's what I've been doing too. And who is that? It's somebody who's probably making, around 6 figures, and they recognize the value of quality copywriting that can turn browsers into buyers, and it's somebody who also recognizes that they need to do a little bit of work in terms of truly understanding their market. I've had a couple of clients who, they think they understand their specific market, but they're not open to, what's the best way to address this particular subsection, or they haven't done the research on the market yet. They've just created this awesome program that they can't wait to get out there. And, I made that mistake when I first started too. I created this awesome program that I wanted to take, and I had nobody buy it. I was like, what happened here? So I'm speaking from experience when I say this. Yeah. Okay. So what's
interesting is one of the A's that I would want to put in, which goes against the grain of your 6As is assumption. I think there's a lot of people assuming that they know their avatars, you know.
Yes.
I mean, you're very prescriptive over what your descriptors, should I say, over what your avatar looks like. You know, 6 to 7 figure earning. They're looking to go from browse to buy. You know, you've got this whole, you've got this whole makeup shift made up. But I think what you tend to have is if you interview a business owner, a small business who's looking to increase their intake of clients or trying to scale their business to a certain level, content and strategy are two very key elements that they're going to need. Right. So once you start working with them, they, especially in our kind of industry, we have this situation where they try and give you an answer to what you think. They tell you what you want to hear in that respect. That's what I'm trying to get to. They kind of almost say like, so if you can, you get a client on almost a sudden, they know that you're going to take them down this route a bit, and they're going to say, okay, so you say, what is the avatar? And then they say it's 18 to 35. They're going to be, millennials and earning at least 35,000, and they've got to have this much disposable income, and they've got to have this kind of lifestyle. Well, actually, their client pool is completely broad. It's a very broad market. It's not an 18 to 35. It's more like an 18 to 55, and it doesn't really matter if they're earning or not. They want to take them on. How easy is it for you to understand and pick up that people are making more assumptions as opposed to calculated guesses? And do you have to spend an inordinate amount of time building avatars with people before you take them along?
Yeah, and actually, that's one of the things that is really important, is kind of going through, these pieces, like, who's your avatar? That's the target market. And then what's their primal desire and their fear? That's the anxiety and the ambition. Right. And what's the sophistication level of the market in general? That's that acquaintance with, what else has been offered in the past. Has anything been offered in the past? Are you new to this market? Yeah. And then finally, the level of awareness that we were talking about. Yes. And it's really critical to spend an hour or 2 hours or whatever it is with the client and say, we need to nail this down absolutely before we can write any copy, before we can create, really clear, compelling content. Mm. They don't understand that this is a process. And sometimes it means going into Amazon, and sometimes it means, and reading books that are books and reviews. Sometimes it means going into forums and Facebook groups and just kind of poking around and reading what people are writing and pulling out what their words are. Sometimes it means doing a survey of kind of a general population. Now, sometimes doing a survey of your own clients, while it can be useful, the problem with it is that they have already been indoctrinated in some senses to your own message. Mm-hmm. And so they may not give you exactly what you really need when you're coming to a cold market. Not that it's not useful, it is, but they may not help you as much when it comes to a cold market. So these are the kinds of research pieces that, as you were pointing out, Ketan, people are impatient. We're impatient with everything in life, and we just want to move to the end. And I get that. I've made that mistake myself many times, but to do it well and to do it right, you have to take the time, you have to be patient, and you have to gather this information.
I mean, it's phenomenal, guys. We are in with the very highly knowledgeable, experienced Debbie Owen here. She's, we're talking about content for winning strategies. We're going to be moving over to mindset very, very shortly, because I know mindset has something to do with these avatars and the awareness and the campaign and stuff like this. But Debbie, let's go back into these. We've talked about the content. We've talked about parts of the structure of the strategy that needs to come out when we start talking about anxiety and acquaintance, and then the awareness, and then the anecdote and stuff like this. This is the kind of processes that one would go through as they're entertaining and engaging a potential audience to become a potential client in this respect. How important is it that there are milestone benchmarks put in place to monitor how effective your content and your structure and strategy is, and what typically could those benchmarks look like? Because I find a lot of people, again, I mean, I had Amanda Watts on a few weeks back, and we were talking about Facebook ad campaigns, and the fact that what she did is she puts like £300 in, and what they're watching is to see is how far is the customer going into their journey. You know, is it a situation that the Facebook adverts are actually generating leads, but then the website's not doing the conversion? Because, you know, you can get that, it's almost that get the horse to the water, but you can't force it to drink. So something is wrong at this end of the scale, which is towards their website and whatever is happening there, rather than the lead generating. I think a lot of people, when they again, because of impatience and perhaps because of ignorance, what they do is they create these campaigns. They think they've got the right content, they've assumed their avatar, they push the button, they put in £500-600, maybe up to £1,500 of budget because someone said to them, oh, I'm getting so many leads because I spend £1,200 a month on Facebook, and all that's happened is they've got a couple of likes but no one's bought. Because so how important is benchmarking, and what does benchmarking typically look like in your world?
Yeah, that's a really important question, and one of the things that you need to take a look at, of course, is the performance of the content marketing that you're doing. And there are a variety of ways you can do this. It's a little bit of an inexact science right now, although I'm eager to start messing around with it. I know Todd Brown has this new software called Conversion Fly that I think should be able to help track, and my goal is to jump into that and start using that as a way to start tracking things. Mm-hmm. But you can, even without extra tools, you can take a look. One of the things that you can do is, you're right, different parts of the funnel may be kind of the bottleneck for where you lose people, and you need to figure out where that is. So do you have a lot of leads coming to your so let me back up just a little bit. When you're running an ad, regardless of whether it's Facebook or Google Ads or whatever, when you're running an ad, run it to content. Don't run it to an opt-in. Because if you're asking people to give you their email address before you've really given them anything, that's a really big ask. And most people these days are really hesitant to give up their email address because our email inboxes are so inundated. Yeah. So when you run an ad, run it to some piece of content, like we were talking about, that problem awareness type of content. You know, short, sweet, to the point, this is your problem, this is why you have it. And once they've landed on your page, now you can retarget them. And so you can see from the people who have landed on your page, and then you retarget them, and then you can send them to some sort of an opt-in. Okay. And you can track that. You can see how many people are going to your first article. You can see how many are actually going to your opt-in. Once they're in your system, once they've opted in, you can keep track of whether or not they're actually following through. Are they becoming, are they buying that first piece, that $7 welcome mat, as Ryan Lee calls it? That liquidating offer that you put out there so that you can run ads for free, even if you're not making money on the front end. Mm-hmm. So are they buying that, or is that not a good offer for them? If they do buy it, then do they become a different type of a more invested purchaser later on down the road? So you can look at all of these pieces and identify where is my content marketing falling down. And remember, content marketing isn't just the ad, and it's not just on your blog. Content marketing is maintaining that relationship over the lifetime of their association with you. Mm-hmm. So once they're your customer, continue content marketing to them, nurturing them, sending them valuable emails, send them gifts just because, even if it's just a PDF that you've put together and you think that they would enjoy it, and hopefully you've got your list segmented, which is a huge piece of addressing your list in the most effectual way, and that is to segment them based on where they're coming from and what their interests are and stuff like that. So does that answer your question in terms of how to measure the conversions? Because
it brings me quite nicely onto the next part, which is all about repurposing content, actually, because mm-hmm. You touched on a point just there that, again, even when they are your customers, even they have made that purchase, I think there is almost this emotional switch that goes off on some entrepreneurs systems where they just turn around and say, right, finally they've bought from us, that's it. You know, we don't need to keep harassing them with emails and marketing to them and telling them anything anymore. We've got their money, we've given them their service, now we move on to the next one. I mean, this isn't a conveyor belt for custom or business. What we're talking about is developing an ecosystem which keeps going round and round, because part and parcel of the ethos of successful or right or correct content repurposing, marketing, and your winning strategies is the fact that you can actually excel and upgrade customers who are already existing to you to other levels. Right. You know, so we're not just talking about the fact that, oh, let's go back in and say, refer a friend and we'll give you $50 worth of credit on something. It's more of the fact that actually they're in your ecosystem for a particular reason. They trust you, they believe that you can solve their problem. Now, that doesn't mean just because you solve one problem that, you know, their whole life is sorted. There are other things that you can start tapping into. So I've heard a lot of experts talking about repurposing content. Mm-hmm. Okay, you know, we have a mutual friend in Justin Devonshire, and you know, Justin, unfortunately, one of the days we had technical faults, I couldn't get him on. But Justin talks very much about this whole process of, you know, any one piece that you have, like a 5 or 6 minute video, you know, or a 10-minute video, could be produced into different levels of content, which could be used to market to your audiences, which allows them to get into your ecosystem. But rather than actually, like you just said, rather than just getting them to opt in or just getting you their email, it looks like you're giving them more and more value, which you are. You're giving them so much specific value, but then you take them on a journey through your site in different areas. So when, you know, it's not like saying, right, this is the only offer, take it or leave it. It's kind of, okay, if you're not ready for that, let's move you to this part here. If you're not ready for that, let's move you to this part over here. Because sometimes, like you mentioned, is customers are either impatient or they have this kind of switch on, switch off switch within them, which says, right, okay, this isn't right for me, I don't think this is the right times, and then they just lose complete interest. So right. As a part of your, what is your kind of advice on when it comes to things like repurposing content? Because I mean, I've got clients that I'm talking to about it. I know when I got told about it, you know, I got this whole, well, you know, I just felt like there was like 6 bricks. There's
so much to do. Yeah.
6 bricks put onto my shoulders of weight. But actually, it's not as hard or bad as I thought it was. But you're the expert, so you know what are your tips on repurposing content?
Well, first of all, I do want to give Justin props for so many things. He's taught me so many things, and one of the things I love that he's taught me this year is you're not closing a sale, you're opening a relationship, and that is absolutely true. And so that's the whole point, is once you create content and you get somebody into your ecosystem, you continue the relationship with them, because not only that, but as a marketer, as an entrepreneur, it's a heck of a lot cheaper to convert somebody who's already purchased from you than it is to convert somebody from cold traffic. So, I mean, it's benefit for you, it's a benefit for them. So that being said, with regard to the repurposing content, that's something that I'm also starting to offer. I'm creating my own system for doing this, and I'm offering it to. I'm going to be starting to offer it to local people. I've talked to a couple of people online as well about this, and that is, we take you know, an audio or and this is not rocket science. And Justin didn't come up with this. Dan Meredith, who taught it to me initially, didn't come up with this. I think Gary Vaynerchuk, I know, has been doing this for years. So I mean, this is not rocket science. It's been done over and over and over again, and this is just now a service I'm starting to provide for my clients. I'm actually talking to somebody this week, and I think he's going to go with it in the next week or two. Of course, you never know till you get the money, right?
Exactly.
But you know, and I just posted about this in the Next Level Mastermind group, and it just got tons and tons of comments and likes. People loved it. The short version is this: you start with an audio or a video. I like to keep it to about 4 or 5 minutes, short, sweet, and to the point. So it's at that lower level, that you know, problem level, problem awareness level, and then you get it transcribed, and then you turn that into a blog post that you put on your blog. You put the post on Facebook. You put the post, maybe you change the headline, you put it over on LinkedIn, and then you also pull out a couple of key quotes from it, put it on pictures, and then you post it on Pinterest, Instagram, Twitter, you know, all those, Facebook, and then you also turn it into a SlideShare type of document. You can turn that into a PDF that you use as a giveaway. I mean, so get a VA.
Well, no, absolutely. But you see, this is my thing. I mean, okay, you know what? Some people can actually get completely drained and tired just hearing that list that you've just gone through.
Yeah, and I've got a system for it.
But
I'd be happy to share it.
Perfect. But the thing with this is that you're creating different types of content in different ways and forms to re-engage certain people. So what's happening now is, rather than going out and saying, hey, here's a lead magnet and give me your email address, it's kind of a situation whereby you've got some valued piece of content that you've put together. It could be a PDF now, which is downloadable and acceptable. It could be, like you say, these little cards that are posted on Insta or on Facebook, which actually create, but it's consistency. I mean, yes. I myself at the moment going through a process basically where I'll tell you what we do here. This is the League of Disruptors show. As I say, it's something that's put on live, but we have a recording of it. What we're actually going to be doing over this period is we're going back to every single interview that we've done, and we're going to now start to actually bring these down. We have a magazine that we run. We want to actually put a feature of our live show on our magazine.
Yep.
But we also want to reiterate a blog basically out of this, and we want to be able to recreate maybe a PDF. Now there could be 5 tips here or 6 tips, like you have, your 6 system that we talk about, which we then embalm together. It's obviously based around what your principles are, but it allows us to go back into the market to give value. So like I said earlier, when I first got introduced to repurposing content, I felt like someone had just put a ton of bricks on my shoulders. But actually, it's whether you build a system or you actually effectively put a process together that as you produce certain content, you start creating all the other bits. It's really a system. It's just a habit that you've got to start getting yourself into. And then so for us, we're looking at a perspective of trying to build 3 months worth of content, so then we can start working on another 3 months of content. So we're almost like 2 or 3 months ahead of our sequence. I think if I tried to do this each week, every week, I think I'd probably collapse and die. I think in that case, I think definitely we have to get a VA. Basically, we have to get a VA to come in and deal, build this whole system into place. But I know a lot of entrepreneurs don't have this time. Some of them don't have the inclination, and to be honest with you, a lot of them don't have the interest. So how is it that you can help with the winning content strategies business that you have? What is it that you can offer to people out there that A, don't have the interest or the inclination, or B, don't have the time or the very sort of desire to actually be doing repurposing content?
Yeah, so what we'll do is we'll have a conversation. At this point, I'm doing the conversations. Over time, I'm sure I'll be training some of the people on my team to do the conversations where we talk about the avatar, the anxiety, the ambition, market level of awareness, and really pull those key things in and help our client understand what type of content they should be creating, give them some strategies, little tactics. For instance, one of the tactics that my copywriting mentor Lucas Roszewski taught us is you go into like the Google AdWords tool and you type in your topic, and then all the topics that show up, well, you write down 50 of them, and those are your blog articles for the next couple of months, And so, I mean, there's simple things like that. So those are the kinds of things where you go into Amazon and you look at chapter titles of books that are on your topic, and those are your blog articles. So those are the kinds of things that I would teach my clients to start out with, and then encourage them to go ahead and make that audio or that video, whichever they're more comfortable with, and then we'll start to do the process for them. They just send us the stuff. It takes a little bit of time. I want to make sure that they really understand who they're talking to and what their message is. I think that's really important. And then once they really understand that, they can start creating the content. We'll repurpose it for them. And then not only will we repurpose it for them, but we'll also put it out on the whatever the platforms are that we agree are most beneficial. And then, like I said, I want to start getting some of these tools to help track which are the ones over 2 or 3 months, which are the platforms that are getting them the best bang for their buck, and we'll really focus our efforts there.
I mean, that's phenomenal. That's, I mean, and we'll be taking the details down very shortly in regards to how people can connect in. I think, while we've got sort of like, the last 10-15 minutes of here, I wanted to, as I say, kind of jump back a little bit into your career, and you've left you've left education and the library side of things. You've obviously you're raising your children as well at this at this process in time. You kind of, I wouldn't say you fell into the mindset thing. I think almost it was the next logical path for you. So within this, you've done you've done these certifications. You've worked with people on mindset, personal mindset. I believe in your bio you also talk about working with parents as well in terms of good parenting, nutrition, etc., etc. Was this part of the process of working on mindset stuff? And how, I suppose, how impactful has that experience been in the work that you're doing today as well?
Good question. I think it kind of goes back to kind of an unconscious thing that I had been doing for so many years, which is I would kind of wake up every day and say to myself, what can I do today to make me to be a little bit better person today than I was yesterday? And eventually I actually was looking for information on brain science in order to understand how kids learn, because that was what I wanted to do. And I stumbled across John Assaraf's material, as well as a number of other people, and discovered all about neuroplasticity and what you can do through the power of affirmations and really changing your thought process in order to change your beliefs and your actions. And that was how I ended up there, was because I was trying to figure out how can I do a better job teaching the kids based on brain science. And so I think the biggest thing about mindset that then carries over from what I was doing, and I still do to some extent with families and with entrepreneurs, is the fact that your thoughts are not your feeling. I mean, you are not your thoughts. That's kind of the key thing. You are not your thoughts. And our thoughts are predominantly negative. I've seen a variety, anywhere from 50 to 60 to 70% of our thoughts, I'm sure your guests have talked about this before, are predominantly negative, and that is an old survival mechanism because we needed to protect ourselves. But we need to recognize the fact that we don't need to have negative thoughts over 50% of our lives anymore. And that doesn't serve us. And so you can actually choose to change your thoughts. And when you stop that monkey mind, that constant ruminating on oh no, they're not going to like me, or oh no, what if I say the wrong thing, or oh no, people aren't going to approve, or this constant worrying about how you're appearing to other people. And with teenagers, and I still work with the teenagers at our church, with teenagers, this drives every moment of their lives. And a lot of people never move past that, even as adults. And the point is, your feelings are just chemicals. They're just your brain all of a sudden kicking in, and this wash of chemicals. I mean, if you're ever afraid of something, you literally feel the fear in your body. That's chemicals going through your body. And if you can decide, I'm not going to be afraid of how people view me, I'm confident in what in what my abilities are, then you're going to be able to change those thought patterns, and you're going to be able to change how you feel and literally change your body chemistry by changing your thoughts. It's pretty amazing stuff, and it's all science. It's not, it's none of the, all the woo stuff. I mean, there's probably some element of that too. But I'm a woman of faith, and so probably there's some woo stuff there. But this is brain science and body chemistry, and we can make changes if we choose to. It's not easy. I'm not saying it's easy, but it's entirely possible.
But I think it's interesting because, I mean, like last week I had Sean Whalen on the show, and what a phenomenal story in terms of his turnaround, his up down, and it's the whole thing of, like you say, your thoughts and your feelings can magnify any sort of chemical reaction. So your fear, your deepest, darkest fear, which you tinked away to the back of your mind can all of a sudden become the biggest thing, bigger than
Right.
anything else. Whereas sometimes what happens is your biggest fears also become some of your smallest reactions or thought processes. It's all based on, like you say, how you think and feel at that moment in time, and what you do about it. I mean, Jamie Smart is another person that we had on recent at the beginning of our series, and he's the author of a book called Clarity and Transform and Result. And in the interview, he talked specifically about the fact the route to clarity. Before transformation, you need clarity. That route to clarity is based around what your thoughts and feelings are. I suppose he didn't go into it from such a scientific approach as you have used, in the fact that there are chemical reactions that are going on within our body which are upping the volume or lowering the volume in this respect. Yeah. But it's a situation where, when one says that you can do this, and if you so choose to, I think people get to a stage when they're in this kind of environment of their thoughts and feelings that they don't actually have a choice. When they always do. There's always a choice. So, with the work that you've done, and you're still doing in terms of catalyzing mindsets and helping people sort of break through barriers and stuff like this, what's your recommendation when you have people that say to you, I have no choice, this is all I can do? I mean, apart from the simple, you always have choice, and help them, keep saying that to them. What could someone that feels like they don't have a choice actually do? Is there any steps they can take?
Yeah. So one of the things I came up with is my A to E technique for remaining calm in the heat of the moment. And the A is just, first of all, to be aware, first of all, of how you are feeling. And, and I'm talking about your body. And you can, it's almost like you raise yourself up into the ceiling and look down at the situation, and you say, oh, look at that down there. My jaw is getting really tight and clenched, and my breathing is getting short and shallow. Yeah. And, you just kind of observe your body and how you're acting. Also observe the other person. And you can say, oh, look at that. My child or my colleague or my boss is really freaking out right now. And you can just, so that's A, is just to be aware of how you're feeling and how the other person is feeling. Then the B is breathe. And it's something that you can do so quickly once you practice it just a few times. And we're going to do it right now. I'm going to say, take a deep breath. And now let it out slowly. And in just those, 3 or 4 seconds, I already feel calmer. Yeah. And I'm sure if anybody in our audience was doing that with me, they did it too. You can immediately feel calmer. And, that old thing where your grandmother said, count to 10 before you say something? Yeah. It is so true. You take a few deep breaths, count to 10, calm yourself down. And even if you need to, you say, excuse me, I need to step away for a moment before I say something I regret. I'll be right back. Yeah. And you walk away, you take a few deep breaths, you calm yourself down, and then you come back. And then the C is to connect with compassion and really understand what the other person is going through. And that goes back to the A, awareness. Okay, so connect with compassion. If you can look the person in the eye, great. Sometimes, I'm especially thinking of teenagers, but it could be adults too. They don't want to look you in the eye because, and that could be intimidating if you say, look me in the eye when I'm talking to you. I mean,
it could come across aggressive. It could come
exactly. If you can look them in the eye and they're willing to do that, great. If they're willing to let you just gently touch their shoulder or their arm, great. If they don't want you touching them, you just say, that's fine. I understand. You're very upset right now. I'm right here. I'm not, particularly with kids, I'm not going to leave you alone with these, with feeling so scared unless you want to leave. But I'm right here with you if you want. So connect with compassion. And then D and E is to discuss with empathy. And that is just simply to say, look, I really understand why you're so upset by this. I know this can be a really frustrating thing for you. I understand because I had the same thing happen to me one time. Just be empathetic so the person on the other end feels heard. And if you go through this A to E technique in the heat of the moment, it will begin to shift your relationship dramatically. And the key part of it is being aware and taking the breath and just connecting and being empathetic.
I think that's just amazing, and thank you for sharing that, because I mean,
Yep.
in between your kind of your 6As and your A to E system, you've actually got all the key relevant parts to how you would engage even audiences where you are antagonizing a problem to them, and you can get them nervous, but you could use that A to E system indirectly through the way you communicate through your content pieces and your marketing as well. I just think
Absolutely.
it's just, and this is why I was kind of saying earlier about there must be such a great impact with the work that you've done in mindsets to the work that helps you. It helps you so much with the work that you do with sort of content and winning strategies in this respect. I think it's absolutely sensational. We're fast running out of time. I haven't had any questions here, but we've got lots of people from different parts of the world watching in today. Actually, I've got Raj from Dubai, I've got Neil Alderson here in the UK, I've got Uttam, I've got a few people from Guatemala, I've got a few people from London, I've got one or two people from India. So you're truly attracting an international audience today.
That's
Debbie.
Fantastic.
Just one, if there was one bit of advice that you could leave our audiences with, most of them would be entrepreneurs, whether it's regarding content or strategies or whatever it be, at the end of the day, if there's one lasting piece of advice that you'd say, look, here's one tip that I want to leave you with, what would that be?
It doesn't matter whether it's about entrepreneurial stuff or family stuff or whatever it is. Life is all about relationships, period. And if you can always focus on the relationship with the person you're talking to, whether it's in writing or in video or face to face, if you can always focus on the relationship first, empathy, compassion, everything else will fall into place.
Amazing, amazing, amazing. So we've had Debbie Owen on today. Debbie, if people want to get hold of you, well, not physically get hold of you, but if they want to connect, they think, they've listened to this, they've heard your tips, they understand or want to get to know more about the 6A system, and pretty much engage and perhaps even recruit the services that you have to help repurpose their content. How can they get hold of you? How can people connect with you?
Thank you. My website is winningcontentstrategy.com. And, I've got lots of resources right there. And if you're a parent and you would like to have extra information about how to handle your kids, you can find me at youcanraisegreatkids.com. And I also have been part of a podcast for over a year, about a year and a half, called MightyMarriedMoms.com.
I saw that. So, that's quite cool.
Yeah. So, but when it comes to entrepreneurs, winningcontentstrategy.com is the place to find me. And while you're there, you can take the quiz that's on the page, and the quiz will ultimately lead you to an opportunity to sign up to have a conversation with me. I'd love to meet with people and find out what they're up to and what their struggles and their concerns are. There are a couple of other opt-ins if you're into opt-ins. I'd love to get people on my list, of course, but I just want to be able to develop a relationship, whether that's through a little bit of an anonymous list or if it's through an actual conversation. I would welcome the opportunity to do that.
That's amazing, and we will be putting up all of those links onto the post shortly after it goes through. So that just leaves me to say, Debbie, thank you very much for your time and taking an hour out to spend with us here, listening to my dulcet tones, having to answer all my questions, having the proverbial why. We very much wish you sort of the best with everything that you're doing there. I think you're doing an incredible job with especially with the mindset stuff and the bits and pieces that you're doing with your church and stuff like that. And I know that there are always going to be people out there that, especially from the entrepreneur side of things, that will think of cutting corners, trying to get the quick fix, looking at this whole unexpectation of what you've got to do to prepare and plan for your content strategy out there. I just hope they actually at some point watch this interview and take just even a few minutes of your wisdom to actually start turning around their fortunes and getting a return on the investment that they're making, both of their effort and their money in getting their communications to clients and stuff like that. But other than that, on behalf of Enterprise Lab and League of Disruptors, I really, really appreciate you coming on the show, and thank you for being with us.
It was a pleasure. Thank you so much, Ketan. I really appreciated it.
You're very, very welcome. So that's it, guys, for tonight. We've got a packed week this week. Who we've got? We've got Colby Kalubias coming on. We have Carl Friedman coming on. We've got a number of different interviews throughout this week. Anything from finance to fun to social impacts to personal development to setting up disco businesses. So look, it's going to be a full, fun, effective week. I hope you're well wherever you are. Stay disruptive. My name's Ketan Makwana. This is the Leader Disruptor Show, and I'll see you again soon.